So here sugar are not doing well as they should.
And we cry, we pray, and we hope that the sugar sector will be revived, because many of us depend on it directly and indirectly, and the county government benefits a lot when our people have money in their pockets.
Ladies and gentlemen, that has been our small documentary. And to unpack the Sugar Task Force report, may I now invite the Honorable Nabi Nabwera to come and unpack the Sugar Task Force report. Honorable Nabi Nabwera. Tumkaribishe kwa makofi jamani.
Thank you, Right Honorable. I want to take very few minutes. I have a colleague whom we were joint secretaries in the task force, Christine Chesaro, who would be assisting me, and we are taking not more than 20 minutes. Right Honorable Speaker, in this hall this morning, all the stakeholders that participated in the negotiated task force report are seated in here. And I would like to ask them, those who participated, including Professor Nyang'nyong, who was the vice chair. I can see Governor Otuoma, who was there. I can see the farmers representatives, Juma and Waswa. They are also here. Can all those who are members of the task force who are in here stand? And I can see Meli, who was then the chairman of Agriculture Committee that we were working under. They are here. Can you all stand up? Those of us who participated in this task force report. You can see them, including the millers. They are all here. So all what I'm saying is what they negotiated. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to use a very simple model to unpack the task force report. If you look at your report, the booklet you have, each one of you have a booklet. Roman 8, it is in graphics. Roman 8. That speaks our story on the sugar task force. Can we go to Roman 8? Christine, can you assist them to move there? The graphics. Yes, that's all. The whole story about this sugar task force is presented there. The 8 recommendations that are derived from the negotiations between government, farmers, millers, traders, and all stakeholders is represented in that Roman 8. The first one talks about increasing cane and sugar production and productivity. The second one talks about enhanced milling efficiency and competitiveness. The third one talks about developing appropriate pricing and funding mechanisms. The fourth one talks about compliance with COMESA requirements. The fifth one talks about promote marketing and trade in the industry. Sixth, review taxation structures. Seventh, improve competitiveness of public-owned mills. And the mother of all is policy, legal, and regulatory institutional reforms. Honorable Speaker, we negotiated a number of tools out of this report, it has a number of annexures. One of the tool was a bill that when the government could not present that sugar bill, we asked Honorable Wamunyinyi to present the bill. The 12th Parliament, the 12th Parliament could not see the bill through. And that is the bill Honorable Wangwe took over in the current Parliament. It's a negotiated bill. Secondly, another tool was negotiated. Regulations that underpin that bill. Again, there was backtracking in gazetting those regulations. So after this bill, we would be presenting it to Parliament. Again, negotiated regulations that the farmers participated, that the millers participated, that the county governments participated. Most importantly, Honorable Speaker, that the task force report was able to recommend commercialization of public mills. And this is what the President was talking about. Leasing is an output of this task force report as part of the commercialization of the public mills. Honorable Speaker, if you go through this report, it talks about the pain. I've decided not to deal with the pain. I've decided to deal with the way forward to deal with this issue. The question of debts, there were three aspects. Number one is what the President is dealing with. What we are dealing with on 14th on the floor of the House. Number two was the farmer's date. And I want to speak here that during that time, we even were able to negotiate and debts were paid. What is shocking that today we still have farmers unpaid. The third aspect of the date was the date by the private company Mumias. And there were two aspects to Mumias, which is in this report. Number one, that there were dates Mumias owed government, pay as you earn, electricity, many things. And number two, there were debentures. This conference must conclusively deal with that aspect of Mumias. Because the report said Mumias must be dealt with in its own merit. I want to ask Christine to take another 10 minutes to take it to specifics.
Guests of honor, Your Excellencies, I'm going to take a very short time. I think His Excellency Anyang' Nyong'o mentioned that the task force report was an extremely detailed report. It has so many things. I don't think there is a solution outside what was captured in this task force report. So I'm just going to run through. I'm not going to take us through each and every detail. I think Honorable Nabi has also touched on the critical issues. And so I will just run through those items and maybe just highlight what I think is key. So the first one is about increasing cane sugar production and productivity. And and one of the critical things is the reestablishment of an independent public research institute. I think when upon the merger, the CALRO was the Sugar Research Institute, or rather KESREF, was merged under CALRO, and the funding for KESREF was drastically reduced. So the result of that is that we do not have adequate research in the sugar sector. Of course, that leads to lack of variety development, the limited research scope, lack of diversification of sources of raw material. all those being reasons why, resulting from the lack of an independent research institution. And then, of course, the decline of cane production and productivity. There's a graph there. I'll request, yes. That graph was drawn in 2018, but as you can see, it had already started coming down. That is about cane deliveries. But right now, of course, we know it's, I'm sure if we were to draw that graph, that arrow, that line would be right at the bottom. In fact, I was scared to draw it because I didn't want to see the effect, to see it come completely down. The decline of cane yields, the industry can attain 120 tons of cane per hectare under rain-fed conditions, but right now we are doing less than 53 tons cane per hectare. Again, there's a graph there that shows you the decline as at 2018. And I'm sure currently, again, if we were to draw it further, it may most likely just be near the floor. The poor synchrony in cane development to match meal requirement, I think, is a chronic problem in the industry. And one of the key recommendations, as you note, I'm not reading all the recommendations, but I have highlighted in red what I think is important. We need to develop systems that will ensure synchronization of milling capacity and sugarcane. Millers should determine an annual mean cane requirement and farmer-miller contracts honored. The regulator, it was agreed that the regulator must ensure that the miller has adequate plant supply to match factory capacity before licensing. Maybe one of the challenges is that we've been licensing. Yes, we will license you on account of cane that you have demonstrated, but moving forward, then we run into the problem of low cane supply. Delayed payments to farmers, which has become a great demotivator. Again, farmer-miller contracts must be honored. High cost of production. Kenya is one of the leading high-cost producers in the region, and that's why we attract sugar imports. We need to come up with a cost reduction management strategy across the entire industry. Harvesting and transportation inefficiencies, leading to infill losses and staleness index. The scope, and so we are saying that we must develop harvesting and transport guidelines, and I think this will also be cured by zoning. Lack of transparency at the weighbridge. The weighbridges need to be fully automated. The regulators should ensure that they undertake regular audits of the weighbridges. Inadequate support for cane development and extension. I think this was mainly as a result of the SDL being abolished, because we know that those funds were to support farmers to develop cane. Low adoption of early maturing varieties. Low farm diversification, leading to food insecurity and soil infertility. Collapse of outgrower institutions. Now, this has led to the farmers depending largely on the miller for everything, because they have nobody to represent their interests. When you're alone dealing with the miller, it's different as from when you're being represented by an organization. Your bargaining power is drastically reduced when you're dealing as an individual farmer. So there needs to be a model of an outgrower institution that works. Then, of course, the diminishing land sizes. That is as far as the farm level is concerned. At milling level, we have inefficiency and high cost of sugar production again. Again, we said we need to develop a strategy. Inefficiency and synchronized cane development leading to factory underutilization, affecting conversion efficiency. Of course, we know you harvest young cane, the conversion is poor. The farmer, everyone suffers. The farmer, even the miller suffers. So this synchrony is very important, and we are saying we need to develop and implement an inter-mill cane transfer mechanism, as opposed to the free-for-all practice that we are currently seeing. Lack of governance structure to coordinate cane production, supply, and processing. Again, it addresses the random collection of cane from any region. Poor infrastructure, inadequate ICT infrastructure. A mill should have an ICT system that synchronizes everything that is backed by data right from the field to sugar production. every mill, right from its own capacity, it should be able to identify where its cane is, the quantities when it's ready, so that we have a seamless operation of our industry as should be. Cane fires, weakness in the regulatory mechanism, low value addition initiatives. One of the key things is we are saying the licensing of new mills should require provision for deliberate plans to invest in value-added products, meaning that you should not just think about milling cane for sugar. There should be initiatives or there should be provisions for value addition. High transport costs and transit losses, inadequate representation of farmer in price bargaining. That is at factory level. At marketing level, to promote favorable sugar marketing and trade, one of the key issues that has been a challenge, of course, is the need for importation. So one has been the oversupply from the Mombasa region. Then, of course, Kenya does not produce refined sugar, and most of the imported sugar then is diverted into the market. There are occasions of smuggling sugar into the country. Some countries also within Mombasa capitalize on the rules of origin, and they bring in sugar, which results in dumping. Then there are occasions where millers have been allowed to import sugar during periods of shortage, which creates a conflict of interest. And the raft of recommendations, there are many there, but one of the key among them was the banning of miller importing sugar, just to remove that conflict of interest. Packaging and traceability, again, we know we are not, we have sugar, we have branding among sugar factories, but we still have packaging issues where sugar is sold in bags so that it's packaged randomly at retail. Inadequate supply of molasses, we need a framework to facilitate that. Lack of quality standards, ethanol, a policy on ethanol production, inadequate supply of ethanol, potential for negative socio-economic effects for lack of a regulatory system on the production and use of ethanol. Co-generated electricity is one of the things that we are losing opportunity on. Co-generated power transmission, low supply of bagasse resulting from low supply of cane. We are not producing briquettes as we should. We are not taking advantage of jaggery production and sale as we should. Then, fourthly, is the compliance with COMESA recommendations. We have tumekuwa wageni wa COMESA for quite a number of years. The safeguard was first implemented in 2002 for an initial period of 12 months. Subsequently, as at 2018, we had renewed 9 times. In implementing the two outstanding conditions, one is the transition from cane payment model based on weight to quality, and the commercialization of private-owned mills. These are the two outstanding requirements which we are yet to meet. The high cost of locally produced sugar within the Mombasa region, then it was $800 per ton. I am sure it's higher now. And coordinated sugar importation, again, has been a challenge. Smuggled sugar, as I said, dumping of sugar. So we are saying with compliance, for compliance with COMESA safeguard requirements and Article 10, all efforts should be put to. This was discussed then, that all efforts must be put in place to ensure Kenya is self-sufficient by 2021. I remember this was emphasized by His Excellency Anyang' Nyong'o then. Unfortunately, we are in 2023. Commence payments based on quality by 2021. We are in 2023. Commence privatization of public-owned mills by June 2019. Pricing and funding mechanism, that is the fifth one. And basically, we are talking about funding, that when the SDL was abolished, the industry, of course, witnessed the lack of funding, and what suffered most is the research. KESREF was funded then to the tune of 610 million in 2013-2014, compared to 56 million in 2017-2018. So that represents 91% reduction in research funding. Definitely, you know what that translates into in terms of research, and I think it underscores the need to bring back the development fund. lack of access to affordable credit by farmers, and we are saying reintroduction of the SDL at the rate of 7%, inadequate funding for research, inadequate funding for cane development, indebtedness of farmer and farmer organizations.